Though I don't like the Reds, everyone in my life loves them. So I do have a little bit of love for him, although I like poking fun. This is about as serious as I can be towards a Reds topic. And it is the 5 most important players to the Reds this year. And how I got to this is taking how they're perceived and if they pop, how important it is for the Reds. So without further ado, this is Reid's top 5 most important players for the Reds coming into this year. Coming in at number 5, I don't think this is any surprise. It's Elly De La Cruz. People want to say, isn't he a little low? Wouldn't he be important? He's obviously the superstar of this team. And he's going to be the superstar of this team going forward. 31 on MLB's top 100 right now. I don't think it'd surprise a single person in the world if he cracks that top 10 list next year. I don't think it'd surprise a single person in the world if he starts multiple games at shortstop for the National League, a National League that is absolutely jam-packed with phenomenal shortstops. That's how transcendent of a player he is. But the question is can he take the next step? Can he be that perennial MVP candidate? Even if he doesn't take that next step, can he replicate what he was last year? I think he's a huge piece, but we've already seen him as an MVP candidate and wanted to get the Reds 78 wins. A lot of hurt players. I think there's other players that need to pop for the Reds to truly pop. Coming in at number 4 is a player that I famously said he's a period on a team and a lineup full of question marks. Last year was one of his worst offensive years everywhere. He was the marquee signing of the Reds offseason last year. That's Jeimer Candelario. I think people aren't giving Jeimer Candelario enough credit of what he can bring to this team. He kind of, if you look at his stats, you look at his career, it's kind of a on-year, off-year, on-year, off-year. Last year was the off-year, the year before that was the on-year. Can he turn into that all-star bat, that middle-of-the-lineup switch-hitting guy? Can he get 30 home runs, guy batting around 270 and OPS in the 800s? Can Jeimer Candelario? He had about as terrible a year as he could have last year. This lineup, which struggled mightily at times, a lot to do with injuries, but a big part was because Jeimer Candelario never really figured it out. An OBP of around 290, I think, Elliot, right?
Yeah.
It was terrible. It was terrible.
Maybe worse.
I don't think he can be worse. So I think he is mightily important to what this lineup can be. Coming in at number 3, it
was 280.
280, that's golly. Coming in at number 3, a few years ago, if I asked every Reds fan who the ace of this team is going forward, I think the majority of them would say Nick Lodolo over Hunter Green. Hunter Green has certainly grabbed that title.
Oh, boy.
I think Nick Lodolo has some of the best stuff in baseball. You look at stuff, you look at what he's able to do. If he can throw, if he can be what he was, what we thought he could be 2 years ago, avoid the injuries, avoid the droughts of where he just doesn't look like quite the same pitcher. If you get a top of the rotation guy thrown from the left side with the stuff that he has, if he can take the big step up, be on the field like we need him to be, take that rubber every 5 days, and take the major step up like Hunter Green, I think the sky's the limit for this rotation that continues to fill out some depth pieces. Number 2, I famously tease you guys saying that you put too much pressure on this guy. Matt McLain, based off his 2023 season, it's not hard to see why you can get excited about Matt McLain. He was on pace for, I think, a 7-win season, 7 WAR, with 30 home runs, 100 RBIs as a second baseman. If you can put that kind of offensive output from second base, you're on the short list. Maybe Ketel Marte. It's better than him. Jose Altuve-esque. Even if his power isn't there, 30 home runs, and that's not even the hallmark of his game, I think the Reds have the best middle infield in the National League Central, and that's with my Cubs having Dansby and Nico. That's with some really good middle infields. It wouldn't be surprising to see that just soar for the Reds. And then my final one, in my effort to be a little different, in my efforts to try and not give the most basic answers, who is the most important player to the Reds' success this year? It's the guy that hit in the middle of the lineup on opening day last year and had one of the worst months we've ever seen. Christian Encarnacion-Strand. If CES can figure it out to be 30, 40, as Elliot always says, a 50 home run guy, if CES can be that power bat, this lineup will pop. Same way that I just said with Matt McLain and CES, or Matt McLain and Jeimer Candelario. You know what you have with a few pieces: Spencer Steer, Elly De La Cruz. Can you get this guy, this huge, imposing figure in the middle of the lineup? Can he be the same power threat that you thought he would be? He's hit every step along the way. Can he do it in the major league level? I think that he suffers from sucking in April when people are the most vigilant. Because if he came up in the middle of July when the season was already kind of out and sucked, I don't think people would be as out on him. I think the fact that he came up and we're like, oh, we need this guy to pop, and he batted 190, then he got hurt, and you're just like, all right, whatever. We'll see. We'll see. Elliot's grinning ear to ear right now because he knows how bad of a take CES is at number one.
Well, it's just like, I mean, you have to have CES be good, but I mean, CES can be replaced on this lineup, and there would be
I
no.
think he can. CES plays poorly this year. I think this team's in a very tough spot.
I think they're significantly worse. Like, you need CES to be good. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, like, if Elly De La Cruz, if Matt McLain are bad, the whole identity of this team is different. If you lose CES and he can't play first base, somebody else is going to play first base, and I don't believe we're going to lose all that much. I could be wrong, and this is where I'm labeled as the CES hater. But I just don't think CES is the most important piece. I think Jeimer Candelario certainly might be. I think Matt McLain. I think Elly De La Cruz. Nick Lodolo is one that I agree with you that if he's available and if he's pitching, he is one of the best pitchers in baseball. It's just, are you going to get that? And I, up until this moment, I haven't been able to say that he's been available. So, and last year, I know people are going to say, well, he pitched a decent amount of games. He was hurt for a large portion of those games, especially down the stretch. I got choked on the water. Take it back.
So here's a.
I'm back. All right, I'm back.
Who was it from the Reds that said yesterday? Trey Sinnen in our group chat said that superstars are always going to have to come from internally.
Brad Mader.
That's it. Their GM.
Yeah.
Okay. I think last time I was on this show, I said that very same thing. Unfortunately, with the Reds market the way it is, with the money that they have and ownership, they're never, ever, 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 I'm sorry to tell you, they're never going to get superstars in free agency. You might look into a superstar in a trade market, but the players that are going to have to be superstars, that are going to have to raise the ceiling to championship caliber, championship contender, are always going to have to come from internally. That's why I say Nick Lodolo and CES are the most important players to the Reds this year. You've seen it with Elly De La Cruz. You've seen it with Hunter Green being able to take that next step up and to be a perennial all-star, Cy Young candidate, MVP candidate. Can you get that from other players? Can Matt McLain turn out to be the Reds' Ketel Marte? Can Nick Lodolo turn out to be the Reds' Chris Sale, Max Fried? Can CES be the Reds' Pete Alonso? Those are the names that I throw because those are the superstars at their position, and that's what you got to have them be if you want to be a championship contender. I don't think I'm being overly negative when I say that, like, you're never going to get the Pete Alonso, you're never going to get the Ketel Marte, you're never going to get the Chris Sale or Max Fried in free agency. You're not going to spend $200 million, $35 million a year. It's going to have to come from internally. So that's why I put those guys where they are.
And that's fair. And it's more than fair, and you're right. You have to have production from people not named Elly De La Cruz for this team to be any sort of good or competitive. I just think that if you look at, what you need this year, you need health, and that's the number one thing. That's why I was scared about Spencer Steer. I say whatever you want about Spencer Steer. The guy plays baseball consistently every single day.
That's right.
Elly De La Cruz. I hate to jinx it. People don't like when I say it. Elly De La Cruz doesn't miss baseball games. And that's why, in part because of his talent and his defense and his athleticism and his power and everything that he brings, the number one thing that Elly De La Cruz has given the Reds so far is his health. He's been absolutely fantastic at being available, ready to play. I think we got mad at last year resting Elly De La Cruz on a random day in August or whenever it was, or maybe it was earlier, maybe like July. It was like the series close of a game. It's like these are scheduled off days for a guy that plays 155 games. You can't ask him to play 162. You have to give him an off day every once in a while. Like, that's how good that guy is at being available and healthy. If you have the guys like Nick Lodolo and CES and Jeimer and who knows, Gavin Lux might be a bigger piece than I'm thinking that he will be this year. But if you have those guys that you don't know what they are yet, the question marks, as Reid likes to say, if you have those question marks turn out to be a couple exclamation points, then this roster is what, like, the national media, Ben Verlander, is saying that they will be, that they're going to be fighting for the playoffs, that they're a bona fide playoff team. Because I don't think they're I don't think it's a bad roster. I look at the Pirates. The Pirates haven't signed a multi-year deal in like 15 years, 20 years. I don't know how long it's been since the Pirates signed a multi-year deal. Like, the Pirates go out of their way to not try. And I think the Reds are trying. I think you're seeing Nick Krall give effort and try right now. So this is what I'm going to say. I'm going to say the Reds are going to finish top 2 in the division. I don't think the Milwaukee Brewers are anything. We'll see if Brandon Woodruff is going to be healthy and available. I think he's going to be fine, but we'll see what the Brewers are. I'm not worried about the Cardinals. I'm not worried about the Pirates. The Cubs, they are fine. But I'm going to say that the Cincinnati Reds, with all of the players and all the question marks, as Reid likes to say, they're going to finish for the playoffs, and that's what it's going to be.